Now, after being penalized by the economic freedom fighters for missing the budget speech in Parliament last month, Naledi Chirwa, who's an MP, made a public apology on social media, citing that her newborn became sick and had informed the wrong authority on her unavailability. And on the eve of the International Women's Month, the story has taken over social media and generated discussions on the agenda of women's empowerment and women's rights. Azania Charlie has penned an open letter in solidarity. She joins me now to discuss this further. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, the reaction on social media has been mixed views and a lot of sentiment really expressed around the treatment of Naledi Chirwa as she had to make that public explanation and apology. You have viewed this in a very dim light insofar as advancement is concerned around women's rights.
Lovely. Good morning, and good morning to your viewers at home. Definitely, indeed, we came together with a group of my friends. In actual fact, after having seen what was transpiring, we are therefore women of 2016, the women of 2015, and the women of 2017 as well. So because of our feminist politics, therefore, and understanding where we had come from the feminist movement and how over the years, these are things that we had been advocating for. That is to say that in the posture of our current political organizations or in their conceptualizations thereof, there is no place insofar as women are concerned into politics. And I just wanted to make it categorically clear, even into the public, that the issue that Naledi Chirwa is facing, it is equally not just an issue of the EFF. It must be stated that clearly. However, this is an issue across all political formations. If you look historically, insofar as our history is concerned, our liberation movement, that is your ANC, that is your PAC, that is the Party for Independence of People in Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, if you look precisely into the formation of this movement and equally the protests that ensued majority of the time, it was women who were at the forefront. But then if you look post-independence, therefore, and you look into the positionality of women within this movement, you would see again that women were always been compartmentalized into these women component structures, you know, your women's league and your women desk and so on. And this has primarily been the issue with our political organization holistically, to say that the liberation of women, the prioritization of women's liberation is indeed not seen and would never be a reality within this current conceptualization, because even in our posture as women within politics, we are therefore still seen as patriarchal princesses. And of course, with many people that would paint us with this badge, I would definitely not fully disagree with them, because in how therefore our politics are set up, still who the majority is who makes decisions, you know. So I just want to state it clearly that even though Naledi at this point in time can be seen or is the case study in point or a point of reference, it is equally just needs to be stated out there that this is an issue across all political formation.
Yeah. So you say that it's an issue that really stuck out like a sore thumb for you as you and a bunch of others took a look at the apology. What concerned you the most as you looked at that apology?
Look, what really concerned me, again, when I looked into that apology, one was the fact that here is a young woman who's given up her time insofar as making it a point that she mobilizes women into her organization. Here is a woman, again, who made it a point that the feminist discourse becomes a fashion insofar as her movement is concerned. Here is a woman, once again, who popularized the feminist discourse. If you recall, Naledi is one of the few women that even stood up to advocate up against the president at the time, Jacob Zuma, insofar as his cases are concerned, because we are of the view that even if perpetrators in most instances can be extradited by the courts, but there are instances where the courts in actual fact would miss most important elements insofar as these rape cases are concerned. So for me, here was an important figure who had made it a point that she sacrifices not only her time, but equally the time of her family, in to come to the space and to serve her political organization. But equally, I also understand that with the political organization that she comes from, there is equally a party line that must be adhered to. But equally, at the same time, it would be very disingenuous of men that will lead within politics who are equally fathers, who are very aware of what postnatal looks like, because I'm of the view that they would have witnessed this from their partners whom they have children with. So to then want a woman because she would not be able to make the cut and the list, and of course this would have been the case, I know it from many political organizations, because she would need it to be on the ground. But for me, it was the lack thereof of understanding that here is a woman who is still very much fragile, who needed all the time that she could get and still could use her maternity leave towards making it a point that her child is nurtured. She spends majority of the time with the child. But because of the demands of the labor that dictates otherwise, she sees herself now having to abandon those duties, her natal duties, and having to go to her labor duties, which is also at the same time very disingenuous for a political organization. The lack thereof of understanding that this is not just an issue of a woman who did not adhere to the rules, but equally here's a woman who has her child that is sick, number one, and a woman who has not fully finished her maternity leave, So there is some disingenuousness insofar as this is concerned, and how therefore it has been dealt with civil society as well as other political organizations.
In strengthening the women's movement and talking to educating society around very imperative matters on transformation, gender equality, and of course gender roles, the myths and stereotypes around that, what call of action is needed?
Look, I think when you started with the question, Paul, you started off by highlighting the fact that this interview takes place post the International Women's Day. I like that. However, my critique of this whole hogwash of International Women's Day, it is it being devoid of the realities that women are still facing. It is its liberal posture thereof, and it is it being so much devoid again from what we are currently facing as women. International Women's Day does not really speak to our issues in South Africa, as we're still a country that faces femicide. Because in hindsight, a question then would be, what is happy, about being a woman in this current context? What is happy about celebrating these things internationally? It is therefore not the duty of feminists, again, to educate men. It is equally not the duty of feminists, again, to be policed insofar as our responses are concerned into these matters, because over the years we have been at the forefront and have been trying to educate our society insofar as our feminist discourse and feminist politics are concerned. Because the problem with the South African politics or the discourse in South Africa and the political landscape, it is the fact that it does not prioritize, once again, the liberation and the advancement of women. Equally to this day, it is still just a rhetoric that is mostly used within those political spaces so to garner the women's support, and it has been like that historically. So equality is not something that we would be able to see, or it would materialize in this day and age or with us as women. It is something that must still be worked hard for. I believe, and I fully am of the view that South Africa and one, because NGOs for the longest of time in this country have been given money to educate people around gender-based violence. The very same NGOs today that are coming to televisions and are want to capitalize on the issue of Naledi are the very same organizations that have the responsibility of going out there and taking all the resources that they've been given to go and educate people in the wider public, and into schools. But equally, we've seen that there is also no willingness insofar as these NGOs are concerned in ending the crisis that South Africa is facing. And this is happening at the expense of black women's bodies in this country,
What do you make of EFF leader Julius Malema's response? I mean, just reading parts of it, he said that Chirwa's apology made inappropriate insinuations about the organization after concerns were raised about her work environment and conditions. And also, he didn't mention the party's commitments to supporting parents or the need for a conducive workplace, all contained in the EFF's election manifesto.
Look, for me, equally, once again, I would argue, therefore, that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done insofar as our male leaders are concerned in understanding the feminist discourse and understanding the politics, therefore, that are concerned. Because Julius is not the only person who's equally responded in this fashion. It is many men who have responded in this, to question equally our disingenuous, therefore, when we are advocating based on our discourse, right? And for me, it is his leg, therefore, of understanding that, number one, it is not just about the party line, but equally it is about an ongoing discourse in the country. Even though I understand that Naledi is not a representative of herself, but she represents an organization. But equally, an organization would then be very disingenuous if the organization does not look into this in the manner that it's supposed to be looked into. I say this because also I am from a political organization, and considering the fact that we are organizations that are going to be going into coalitions as the current political status of the country dictates. It is, however, therefore, would be disingenuous for us to keep quiet while Julius is casting such aspersions. And equally, what posture was Naledi supposed to take insofar as the apology is concerned? Because in hindsight, this is why they had deployed her into the movement. That is why they wanted her to be part of the movement. It is simply because of a feminist discourse. And equally, there was no other excuse that she could definitely come up with, except the fact that, which is the truth of the matter, the child being sick and then a child being an infant. So there was a lack of remorse from the sentiments that were shared by Keda Julius, of which I think they need to be looked into, and therefore, if it's possible, he would definitely need to retract those statements, and his utterances. And I think, therefore, it boils down back to the organization and its responsibility thereof, insofar as making it a point that men equally in those movements are fully equipped and do understand what the feminist discourse is and what is the plight of women in South Africa, and equally understand that it is a priority, as is national liberation.